Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, today we're ditching the coast, the cities, and heading inland. Way inland. We're talking about the Australian Outback.
That vast, silent, honestly kind of awe-inspiring place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a journey that, yeah, it needs adventure, but maybe even more, it needs some serious logistical planning.
Mm.
You've told us the Outback is high on the list, so we've done the legwork. We went through all the sources articles, traveler notes, expert guides, and we've boiled it down. Our mission today, cut through that complexity. We're not just listing amazing places, though we'll do that too.
Sure.
We're really digging into the nitty-gritty. When should you actually go? What's the real cost going to look like? And how do you deal with those park passes? It can get confusing.
It really can.
Think of this as your roadmap, like expanded cheat sheet to avoid the common pitfalls. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, the Outback's draw is just huge, isn't it? You've got these enormous desert landscapes, that deep connection to Aboriginal culture, iconic red rocks, Uluru-Kata Tjuta.
World famous.
Absolutely. And the wildlife, often quite unique. It's definitely a bucket list trip, partly because it's challenging. And the key thing that came through loud and clear from all the sources, success really hinges on planning, like almost military precision planning.
Okay.
You have to factor in huge distances, that really intense seasonal weather, and making absolutely sure you've got the right passes sorted before you even leave home.
Right.
If you don't respect the logistics. Well, the Outback has a way of humbling you, let's say.
That leads us perfectly into section 1. When to go. The timing. This isn't like planning a trip to Melbourne where, rain just means maybe hitting a museum instead of the park.
No, totally different.
In the Outback, the weather isn't just preference. It's like the main thing you have to plan around. The sources were really clear on this. The timing massively affects how good and how safe your trip is.
That's absolutely right. The number one question is always, when's the best time? And the answer, consistently, is the winter or dry season. So think roughly May through September.
May to September, okay.
That's the window where everything aligns best. The weather, the road conditions across both the red center down south and the more tropical top end up north.
So let's break down those conditions because, for someone listening maybe in Europe or North America, winter sounds cold, but this sounds pretty good for travel.
It is. It's ideal, really. You're looking at mild, sunny days, I think high teens to mid-20s Celsius, so like high 60s to low 80s Fahrenheit. Really comfortable for hiking.
Nice.
Fewer storms, which is crucial. And that directly means more reliable road conditions, especially if you're venturing onto any unsealed roads.
That's a big one.
Huge. And another thing the sources kept mentioning, a real quality of life point, flies. The intense summer heat brings out swarms of bush flies. They're much, much less of a problem in the cooler, drier winter months.
Ah, the Aussie wave. You can avoid doing that constantly.
Pretty much. You can actually stand and enjoy the view without swatting your face every 2 seconds. It makes a massive difference to the experience.
Okay, that sounds like a huge win. But you mentioned mild days and cool nights. There's a catch there, isn't there? Something about desert temperatures.
Yes, absolutely. This is super important and trips people up all the time. It's a proper desert climate.
Right.
So while the days can feel warm, even hot sometimes, as soon as the sun goes down, especially with clear skies, all that heat just radiates away. Night temperatures, even in winter, can drop close to freezing, 0 degrees Celsius, sometimes even a bit below.
Wow. Okay, so freezing in the desert.
Definitely. If you're camping, and many people do, you absolutely need proper thermal layers and a good quality cold-rated sleeping bag. We're talking rated to 0 degrees C, maybe even 5 degrees C to be safe.
Not just your summer camping gear, then.
Not at all. Waking up to frost on your swag is pretty common out there in winter. Being unprepared isn't just uncomfortable, it can be dangerous. Risk of hypothermia is real.
Good heads up. Now, the flip side, the summer or wet season, November through April. Why is this generally considered, let's say, less ideal?
Less ideal is putting it mildly sometimes.
Yeah.
The sources paint a pretty stark picture. You're dealing with, first, extreme heat, like really extreme.
How hot are we talking?
Regularly pushing into the high 30s Celsius, even over 40. That's, high 90s, over 100 Fahrenheit. Hiking in the middle of the day is basically off the table. It's dangerous.
Right.
And second, particularly in the top end, but it affects the center too, you get tropical storms. Heavy rain, flash flooding potential, which leads to road closures. Plus, high humidity and loads more mosquitoes and flies.
And those road closures, especially unsealed roads, they can just shut down completely, right?
Exactly. Routes like the Marini Loop between Kings Canyon and the West Macs, parts of that can become impassable or officially closed for weeks during a heavy wet season. Your whole itinerary can get thrown out.
So if someone has to travel then, maybe school holidays or work schedules dictate it. Is it a complete write-off?
Not a complete write-off, but the approach has to be totally different. It demands super careful planning, constantly checking road conditions, like daily.
And you absolutely must do any strenuous activity, like hiking, at the crack of dawn, literally. Be finished by 9 a.m., maybe 10 a.m. at the absolute latest before the heat becomes dangerous. For the top end, the wet season can actually be spectacular, visually huge waterfalls, lush greenery, but getting there might mean flying or sticking only to the main sealed highways. Access is the challenge.
Got it. And what about the shoulder months, like April and October? Are they a gamble?
They can be, yeah, a bit transitional. April might still have some lingering wet season storms or road closures. October can see that summer heat arrive early and quite intensely. So you can make them work, but you need flexibility in your plans and keep a close eye on forecasts. But honestly, the clear consensus from everything we read, May to September, that's the sweet spot. Best bet for safety, comfort, and seeing everything you want to see.
Okay, May to September locked in. Let's move to section 2, the budget. This is where people can get a bit of a shock, right? An Outback trip isn't like a deep coastal road trip. Here's where it gets really interesting. Yeah, sticker shock is a good way to put it. The moment you leave those major cities on the coast, the whole cost structure changes.
Why is that? Just distance.
Distance is a huge part of it, yeah. But it's also about low infrastructure and lack of competition. Everything, fuel, food, supplies, has to be trucked in hundreds, sometimes thousands of kilometers.
Right, long supply chains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And often there's only one place to get something for a very long way. So you really need to reset your daily budget expectations compared to a trip around, say, Sydney or Melbourne.
And looking at the breakdowns people shared, one cost just looms large over everything else: fuel. Why does fuel dominate the budget so much?
It's consistently the single biggest expense on any significant Outback drive, often 30%, sometimes even more, of the total trip cost.
Wow.
And it's two things: the sheer distances you cover, obviously, but also the price per liter. That national average you see on the news. Forget it out there.
So what sort of prices are we actually looking at?
Well, the source data mentioned a national average around A79.79 per liter back in early 2025. But in remote roadhouses, expect to pay significantly more. Peaks well over A2, sometimes pushing toward A2.50 a liter, weren't uncommon in the data we saw.
Ouch. Especially if you're driving a big 4WD or a camper van.
Precisely. They drink more fuel to start with, and those roadhouses, they're often the only fuel stop for 200, 300 kilometers or more. They have massive transport costs to recover, and, frankly, they have a captive market.
Which leads to that absolutely critical, non-negotiable rule you see everywhere.
Fill up at every opportunity.
Yeah.
Every single roadhouse you pass on those remote stretches, pull in and top up the tank,
Yeah.
even if you're only half empty.
Why is that so rigid? Can't you gamble on the next place being cheaper?
You just can't risk it. Cheaper might be marginally less expensive, or it might not exist. Or worse, the next roadhouse might be out of fuel, or their pumps might be broken. And further down the road could be hours away with no phone signal in potentially dangerous heat. Running out of fuel in the Outback isn't an inconvenience. It can be a life-threatening emergency.
So know your vehicle's range, know the distance to the next fuel stop, and always have a buffer.
Exactly. And carrying extra fuel in certified jerry cans, maybe 20 or 40 liters, is highly recommended if your vehicle setup allows. Cheap insurance.
Okay, fuel sorted. What about the second big chunk? Accommodation and transport. Camper vans seem popular.
Very popular. They combine your wheels and your bed. The sources suggested baseline rentals for a simple camper van start around $150 per day, maybe more in peak season.
And that's for a basic one, right? Not necessarily 4WD.
Correct. If you need a 4WD camper capable of handling rougher tracks, the price goes up significantly from there. So $150 is probably the minimum starting point for budgeting transport and basic lodging combined.
And for actual campsites, what are the options and costs like?
You've got a few tiers. National park campgrounds are usually the most budget-friendly. Think a $10 to maybe a $30 per night per site. Facilities are often basic toilets, maybe cold showers, sometimes BBQ plates. Then you have commercial holiday parks, usually in the hub towns like Alice Springs or Yulara. They cost more, maybe a $40, a $60 plus a night for a powered site. But you get hot showers, laundry, maybe a pool, power hookups, good for recharging devices and running fridges.
Right.
And a key money saver mentioned was using the free or very low-cost campgrounds run by the Northern Territory government in some parks if you're fully self-sufficient with water and power.
Makes sense. But I can see how managing all the fuel logistics, water, maybe unfamiliar camping gear could feel daunting for some. What about just booking a tour?
That's the alternative, yeah. Guided multi-day tours definitely offer convenience and, importantly, they transfer the risk.
How?
They handle the driving, the navigation, the accommodation, the meals, the park entries, usually. Well, sometimes not the park entry. We'll get to that. And crucially, they provide the right vehicle, often a rugged 4WD bus or smaller 4WDs, and experienced guides who know the conditions.
But the trade-off is cost, presumably.
Big time. You're looking at starting prices well into four figures, even for just a few days. Mid-range and top-tier operators specialize in those more adventurous 4WD routes, getting you places you probably wouldn't or shouldn't attempt on your own in the standard rental.
So you're paying for expertise, access, and safety management.
Exactly. DIY is great if you're experienced, prepared, know your vehicle, and check conditions constantly. But for really remote tracks, joining a group 4WD tour can actually be more cost-effective than setting up your own expedition vehicle, buying permits, and having a plan B for breakdowns.
Because getting recovered from somewhere remote would cost a fortune.
Tens of thousands, potentially. A group tour spreads that risk and cost.
Okay, back to the DIY folks trying to save cash. If fuel and distance are the enemy, smart routing must be the weapon.
Absolutely critical. The strong recommendation is to build your trip around one hub. The classic is the Red Center Fly Drive.
Fly into Alice Springs or Uluru.
Yeah. Fly in, rent your vehicle there, do a loop, and fly out from the same place. This tackles two big costs. First, you avoid driving thousands of kilometers from, say, Sydney or Adelaide just to get to the Outback. Huge fuel saving.
And the second?
One-way rental fees. Dropping off a camper van or 4WD hundreds or thousands of kilometers from where you picked it up incurs massive fees. We're talking $500, maybe $1,000, sometimes even more, just for the convenience. A loop avoids that entirely.
Smart. And what about managing time efficiently on the ground, thinking back to that heat issue?
Time management is safety management, really, and optimizing photos. The advice is consistent. Cluster your hikes and strenuous activities for first light, like dawn, and then again in the late afternoon.
Avoid the middle of the day.
Completely avoid the peak heat. This keeps you safer, more comfortable, and it also happens to be when the light is best for photos, that amazing golden hour light on the red rocks. So it's efficient planning that pays off in multiple ways.
All right. We know when to go. We've got a handle on the budget. Now let's tackle Section 3, the bureaucracy, those passes and fees. This seems to confuse a lot of people because it's not just one system, is it?
No, it's definitely a point of confusion, and getting it wrong can genuinely stop you at a park gate or lead to fines. What's fascinating here is you're dealing with two distinct layers of government managing parks right next to each other.
Rural and territory.
Exactly. You've got the Commonwealth or federal government managing specific, usually World Heritage listed sites, and then the Northern Territory government managing most of the other parks in the NT. And they have separate passes, separate rules.
Okay, let's start with the big one, the icon. Uluru-Kata Tjuta National Park. That's federal, right?
Correct. It's managed federally, jointly with the NAMU traditional owners. Entry requires the specific Uluru-Kata Tjuta National Park Pass.
And the cost for that?
Currently, it's $38 per adult for a 3 consecutive day pass. Or you can get an annual pass for $50 if you plan multiple visits or longer stay. Kids under 18 are free.
3 days seems pretty standard for covering Uluru and Kata Tjuta.
It's usually enough, yeah. But the really critical detail, the sources hammered home. You must buy this pass online before you get to the park entrance gate.
Wait, you can't just pay at the gate. Why online only? That seems like it could catch people out, especially with patchy internet.
It does catch people out. That's the feedback. The rationale seems to be partly about streamlining entry, reducing cash handling, and maybe managing visitor numbers. But also, yeah, the remote location can mean unreliable payment systems at the gate itself.
So if you rock up without that pre-purchased online pass...
You're likely facing significant delays. You might have to turn around, drive back to Uluru Resort where there's reliable internet, buy it on your phone, and then come back. You could easily lose hours, maybe miss that sunrise you planned for.
Okay, huge heads up there. Buy the Uluru Pass online in advance. What about guided tours? Does that $38 fee come included in the tour price?
Usually no. This is a classic hidden cost trap. Most tour operators cover transport, guide, maybe lunch, but the actual federal park entry fee is often listed as an extra cost that the traveler needs to pay separately or purchase themselves beforehand. Always check the tour inclusions carefully.
Good tip. And culturally, visiting Uluru, anything specific to keep in mind?
Absolutely. The sources stress respecting the guidelines set by the Inagu traditional owners. This park is Aboriginal land, leased to the government. The big one is adhering to the no-climb policy on Uluru itself. It's deeply sacred, and the climb has been permanently closed. Respecting photography restrictions in certain sensitive areas is also important.
Okay, so that's the federal pass for Uluru-Kata Tjuta. Now, what about driving, say, to Kings Canyon or Litchfield? That's a different pass.
Completely different pass. Once you leave the boundary of Uluru-Kata Tjuta National Park, you're generally entering parks managed by the Northern Territory government. For those, you need the Northern Territory Parks Pass.
And that covers places like Litchfield.
Litchfield National Park near Darwin, Nipmuc National Park, which includes Catherine Gorge, and Watarka National Park, which is where Kings Canyon is located. Most of the big NT parks, basically.
How does the NT pass work in terms of cost and duration?
It's more flexible for longer stays. You can get a day pass for $10 per adult, but much better value is the 2-week pass for $30. They also offer annual passes if you're doing a really extensive NT trip.
So the key takeaway is, driving from Uluru to Kings Canyon, you cross an invisible administrative line and your federal pass stops working, and you need the NT pass.
Exactly that. Geographic closeness means nothing in terms of passes. Uluru Federal Pass, Kings Canyon, Litchfield, Nipmuc NT Pass. 2 separate purchases.
It seems unnecessarily complicated.
It reflects the different layers of governance in Australia. But the practical advice is simple. Figure out which parks you're visiting and buy all the necessary passes online before your trip. Federal Pass for Uluru and T-Pass for the others. It saves hassle, potential queues at visitor centers, and ensures you're compliant.
Right, passes sorted, logistics nailed down. Section 4. Let's talk about the payoff. Where should you actually dive deep? What are those unmissable experiences?
Yeah, this is the fun part. The Outback delivers some truly world-class sites. We can kind of split the main tourist areas into the Red Center, around Alice Springs and Uluru, and the tropical top end near Darwin.
Most people probably focus on one or the other, right, given the distances?
Usually, yeah. Doing both requires a lot more time and driving. Let's start with the Red Center, the heartland. Obviously, Uluru is number 1, but what else is essential there? Beyond Uluru itself, Kata Tjuta, formerly the Olgas, is right next door, and equally stunning, maybe even more interesting geologically for some. The Valley of the Winds walk there is incredible.
How tough is that walk?
It's moderately challenging. About 7.4 kilometers, takes 3-4 hours, involves some rocky climbs and descents, but it takes you deep amongst those 36 giant domes. Absolutely worth it, especially in that cooler winter weather we talked about. Fewer flies make it much more pleasant.
Okay, Uluru and Kata Tjuta covered. Then Kings Canyon, that sounds like a must-do too, but maybe more strenuous.
Definitely. Kings Canyon in Watarka National Park, the main event is the Rim Walk. It's about 6 kilometers. The sources are unanimous. You have to do this at dawn.
Why dawn specifically? Just the heat?
Mostly the heat, yes. The initial climb up onto the rim is steep. They call it Heart Attack Hill for a reason. It's maybe 150 meters elevation gain quite quickly. Doing that in the cool morning air is vital for safety and comfort.
And the views from the top?
Spectacular. Panoramic views across the canyon, unique rock formations like the Lost City Domes, and the lush Garden of Eden waterhole down below. It's a highlight for many people. Then closer to Alice Springs, you have the West MacDonnell Ranges, a whole chain of beautiful gorges.
Which ones stand out?
Simpsons Gap is very accessible. Stanley Chasm is dramatic, especially when the sun hits at midday. Ellery Creek Big Hole is popular for a swim, a very, very cold swim. Ormiston Gorge is stunning too. Great for shorter hikes and seeing amazing geology where the ranges were pushed vertical.
Right. Those cold water dips sound tempting after a hike, but you have to be careful where you swim, don't you?
Absolutely. Only swim where signs explicitly say it's safe. Water quality can vary, and submerged hazards exist. But in designated spots, it's a fantastic way to cool off.
Okay, shifting north now. If someone is doing that bigger trip or focusing just on the top end, what's the vibe there? How's it different from the Red Center?
Completely different landscape. The top end, think Kakadu National Park, Litchfield National Park, is tropical savanna. So more vegetation, rivers, billabongs, huge waterfalls, especially towards the end of the wet season or early dry.
And famous for rock art, too.
World-renowned. Kakadu has some of the oldest and most significant Aboriginal rock art sites on the planet, like Ubir and Norlangi Rock. It's also incredibly rich in wildlife, especially birds.
What are the main challenges or access requirements specific to the top end?
Timing is even more critical here, maybe. You really need to go in the dry season, May to September, October, for road access. Many park roads and attractions in Kakadu are closed during the wet due to flooding. And the other massive factor? Crocodiles. Both saltwater, salties, and freshwater, freshies.
Okay, that's serious.
Extremely serious. The rule is simple and non-negotiable. Only swim in places that are clearly signposted as designated safe swimming areas. Often these are pools above waterfalls where crocs can't reach or areas actively managed for safety. Assume any other waterway could have crocodiles. Don't risk it.
Got it. Now, most people will stick to the main routes, but the sources also talked about those really remote off-grid tracks, the Udnadata, Birdsville, Strzelecki. What's the deal with
Yeah,
those?
these are legendary tracks, proper adventures for experienced four-wheel drivers. They offer incredible remoteness and a real sense of journey.
But not for the faint-hearted or unprepared?
Absolutely not. The warnings are stark. These are not scenic detours. They're serious remote area expeditions. You need a well-prepared 4W vehicle, extensive recovery gear, extra fuel, extra water, reliable communication like a satellite phone or PLB, and solid mechanical knowledge.
When you say recovery gear, what does that actually mean, beyond just a shovel?
Oh yeah, we're talking things like max tracks or similar recovery boards for getting out of sand or mud, a high-lift jack, rated snatch straps and shackles, possibly even a winch. Plus, a comprehensive toolkit, tire repair kit, and an air compressor are essential.
And communications are key because there's no phone signal.
None. Zero signal for vast stretches. If you break down or get stuck, a sat phone or a PLB, personal locator beacon, is your only way to call for help. And help could be days away and incredibly expensive. These tracks demand total self-sufficiency. Mandatory check-ins with police are sometimes required too.
Okay, so for any Outback traveler, even sticking mostly to sealed roads, but maybe doing short, unsealed sections to gorges, what's the absolute minimum essential gear checklist?
Right, the lifesavers. Number one, sun protection. Wide-brimmed hat, sunglasses, high SPF sunscreen. The UV is intense. Number two, water. Carry way more than you think you need. The guideline is 3 to 5 liters per person per day just for drinking, especially if hiking. Plus a big emergency stash in the car, maybe 10-20 liters.
Okay.
Number three, navigation. Don't rely only on your phone's GPS. Download offline maps, but also carry paper maps as a backup. Get familiar with reading them. And number four, if you plan on driving any unsealed roads, even graded gravel ones, you need a tire repair kit, plugs and tools, and a portable air compressor. Flat tires are super common. Being able to pump your tires back up after lowering pressures for gravel is also key.
And that cold weather sleeping bag we talked about earlier.
Yes, don't forget that. Prepare for cold nights, even if the days are warm. Desert extremes.
Phew, okay. That's a lot of info. Seasons, costs, gear, passes. Let's try to pull it all together. Section 5. How does this look in practice? The sources gave a sample red center itinerary, right? A 6-day model.
Yeah, they did. It's a really good example of how to structure a trip efficiently. Based on that fly drive approach we discussed, flying into either Yulara, Ayers Rock Airport, or Alice Springs.
Wow.
This model assumes flying into Yulara.
Okay, walk us through it. Day 1.
Day 1. Arrive at Yulara Airport, pick up your rental vehicle, check into your accommodation, then, crucially, make immediate use of that pre-purchased federal park pass. Head straight into the park for the afternoon, do the drive around the base of Uluru, maybe a short walk, and position yourself for sunset viewing. You could also potentially book the Field of Light art installation experience for that evening, if it fits the budget and interest. Maximize that first day.
Makes sense. Use the pass straight away. Day 2, more Uluru focused.
Day 2 starts early. Very early. You're heading back into the park for Uluru sunrise. Different light, different perspective, mandatory Outback experience.
Right.
After sunrise, visit the cultural center. Really important for understanding the significance of the place. Then in the afternoon, head over to Kata Tjuta for that Valley of the Winds walk we mentioned.
So day 1 and 2 really knock out the Uluru-Kata Tjuta highlights, making good use of that 3-day federal pass.
Exactly. Then on day 3, it's a travel day. You start the drive towards Kings Canyon, which is in Watarka National Park. The drive itself takes about 3 to 4 hours on sealed roads.
Okay.
So you arrive at Kings Canyon Resort or the campground mid-afternoon, settle in, maybe do a shorter walk near the resort, catch the sunset views over the ranges, and this is key, get an early night.
Because day 4 is the big hike, and you need that NT Parks pass now, right?
Correct, on both counts. You'll need your NT Parks pass active from today. And day 4 is all about the Kings Canyon Rim Walk, and it must be done first thing at dawn. Set off as soon as there's safe light.
Beat the heat and potential closures.
Precisely. In warmer months, they often close the steep initial climb by 9 a.m. for safety. Get it done early, it takes about 3–4 hours. By mid-morning, you're finished with the main event. Then, after the walk, you can start a drive to Alice Springs. That's another 4 or 5 hours roughly, mostly sealed roads again. Arrive in Alice in the late afternoon, check in. Alice is your base now.
So that completes the main loop. Ulara, Kings Canyon, Alice Springs. What about day 5?
Day 5 uses Alice Springs as a base for exploring the West MacDonnell Ranges. It's an efficient day trip. Drive out west, hitting highlights like Simpsons Gap, Stanley Chasm, Ellery Creek Big Hole. Use your NT Parks pass again.
Saves packing up and moving accommodation again.
Exactly. Much more relaxed. Enjoy the gorges.
Yeah.
Maybe have that bracing swim. Head back to Alice in the afternoon.
And day 6, the final day.
Day 6 is typically a wrap-up morning in Alice Springs before flying out. You could visit the Alice Springs Desert Park, which is excellent for seeing local wildlife and learning about desert ecosystems. Or explore some of the Aboriginal art galleries in town. Then head to Alice Springs Airport for your flight home.
That really does seem to tie it all together. It optimizes the route to minimize backtracking and fuel, uses the fly-in approach to save time and one-way fees, and critically schedules the tough hikes like Kings Canyon for the coolest part of the day.
Yeah, it's a solid, logical structure based on the realities of the environment and the logistics. It delivers the iconic Red Center experience safely and efficiently.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Final thoughts.
If we connect this all back to the bigger picture, the overall verdict from the sources is pretty clear. The Outback. Absolutely worth a considerable effort, especially for travelers looking for that incredible sense of scale, those huge night skies, a deep dive into ancient culture.
But with caveats.
Big caveats. The reward is definitely conditional on respecting the plan. Go in winter, Mesa, pre-book, and understand the 2 different park pass systems, federal for Uluru and T for most others, and plan meticulously for the distances, the fuel, the water, the right gear. If you do that, particularly focusing on a region like the Red Center with that fly drive loop model, the experience you get for the cost is actually excellent value, especially for mid-range travelers who camp or use basic accommodation.
So smart routing, early starts. That's how you unlock it without breaking the bank or taking unnecessary risks.
That's the formula. It's about high-impact discovery, but the preparation has to match the scale of the place you're visiting.
Yeah, that preparation, it's almost part of the experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Knowing you need thermal gear for potentially freezing nights in the desert, meticulously planning fuel stops, navigating 2 different online pass systems. It feels like the entry price.
It really is.
And that effort, that foresight, it's directly linked to the reward. That unique feeling of isolation and the sheer immensity of the landscape, you feel like you've earned it because you planned for it.
Well said.
So as you think about your own potential Outback adventure, knowing all this now, the dual pass system, the potential for frost, the absolute need to fill the tank at every chance, what unexpected detail about the planning or the sheer scale of it all stood out most to you? We really hope this deep dive gives you both the inspiration and, crucially, the practical tools you need to confidently plan and execute an incredible trip to the Australian Outback.